Okay, take probably 6 or 7 at this point because this thing does not want to submit on Canvas. My name is Dimitri, and I'm in the poverty group, obviously. The name of my presentation is Hoosier Poverty and the Government Response. Moving along, we're going to talk about the problem, but before I do that, I want to kind of break down Indiana's situation regarding poverty at a state level before I narrow it down into Marion County. So looking at the state as a whole, the poverty rate is about 14.6%, which is actually proportional with the nation's average. So approximately 1 out of every seven Hoosiers are living in poverty, and we are ranked 29th in the United States. To break it down by gender, about 13.1% of these individuals are males and the other 16% are females. And then I have an age breakdown here, but I don't need to go through all of that. I'd say the most important part to include about this is that the highest percentage of age grouped individuals living in poverty in Indiana are people under under the age of 6, and they are at 23.3%, and then the lowest is 85 years and older at about 9.5%. And then to break it down a little more from a geographical standpoint, Gary, Indiana is the most poverty infested city in the state at about 80,000, and then second is East Chicago, third Marion County, fourth Terre Haute, fifth Peru, and sixth is Muncie. So like I said, moving along and kind of focusing on Marion County specifically and the poverty issue in those county lines, the problem conditions are from the year 2000 to 2015, Indianapolis's poverty rate doubled to reach more than 20% of the city's population. This was an increase of about 85,000 people, and 30% of these individuals were actually children. So that statistic lines up with the age breakdown, meaning stating that the most people living in poverty are children under the ages of 6. And then with this increase of 85,000 people living in poverty over this 15-year period, in the same 15-year period, Indianapolis's population as a whole actually grew by 89,000. So 85,000, 89,000. What does that mean? That means that the number of people living in poverty is increasing at almost the exact same rate as the population is growing, which is a serious problem. And then the major problem with Marion County and Indianapolis specifically, and the reason why all these people are starting to live under the poverty threshold, is from the number of jobs that have been lost due to automation. So Indianapolis is a largely industry-driven state, and the increase of automation has caused 19,000 people to lose their jobs. And at the same time as this 19,000 job decrease in manufacturing, there's actually a 66,000 increase in healthcare positions and 32,000 increase in administrative services during the same 13-year period or so. And what that means, or the issue here, is that the people who were laid off from their jobs due to automation were most likely didn't have a high level of education, and so they are a lot less likely to obtain a job in these healthcare positions and a lot more likely to obtain a job in administrative services, which pays a mere salary of about under $25,000 per year, which would be putting those individuals at risk for living in poverty. The problem costs. Actually, no, I already said that. Okay, and the sub-problem here is that the job growth in healthcare and administrative services are located in the outer suburbs of Marion County, so away from the metropolitan area. There's about a 60% job growth in these areas, and the sub-problem here is that these individuals living in poverty are faced with the serious issue of how to commute to this location of a spike in jobs to obtain one of them. In 2010, the households that were without a car increased by 33%. So this poses a major issue for people living in poverty to obtain a job just because they can't get to where it's at. Moving along, so the government responds to this issue. The unemployment insurance program, which is a federal assistance program, and just to kind of explain this policy provides temporary cash assistance on a weekly basis to unemployed people. There are two major requirements to receive aid. You must have received the minimum wage payments before you were unemployed, and you must have been unemployed by an extraneous factor, so it wasn't your own fault. And then moving along. Oh, and the reason why this is beneficial to people unemployed in Marion County is because automation is an extraneous factor. Excuse me. And then my second government response is the TANF program, the Temporary Assistance to Needy Family Program. It's subjective to every state. They can implement their own regulations and guidelines, but in whole, this program provides cash assistance to aid families with children under the age of 18 for people who are living in poverty, and this is beneficial in Marion County because it benefits those 1 in 3 children living in poverty. We know that 30% of that 85,000 person increase, 30% of those were children. Let's see. And then the requirements for eligibility, like I said, you must be under the age of 18, and the family overseeing the child must meet certain financial criteria, such as a monthly gross and net income standard, and this standard varies by the size of the family. Moving on to my critique. Talking specifically about the TANF program, it remains to be successful due to those rigorous guidelines and its actual very lengthy application process. These are the two main reasons why it's so unsuccessful, and it's actually the second lowest. It has the second lowest number of recipients of all the Indiana government assistance programs. To make this a little bit more clear, so to be living under the poverty threshold in Indiana, you must receive a monthly net income of $2,000 at most, and this is about almost $2,000 more than the cutoff to be aided by TANF. So basically what that is saying is that you have to be significantly, I don't want to use the word poor, but less monetarily privileged than the poverty cutoff. So you got to really, really be in the hole. And then about the application process, this process takes up to 60 days before an applicant even gets it back. So 60 days before they get turned down or they get it, they don't know. So they're basically waiting for 60 days to have the possible chance of not getting it. And then my evidence for those claims and reasons, like I said, I think the most important piece of evidence is that Indiana's TANF program, like I said, is second to last in its number of recipients, with about 14,500, and Medicaid and CHIP at the top with almost 800,000. So that just goes to show you how little it is performing. To conclude, the growth in poverty within Marion County is exceeding at a rate far too fast. Obviously, it is exceeding at the same pace that the population is growing. And then a major factor of this, as I stated, is due to automation in the manufacturing industry. And then finally, the federal welfare programs such as TANF specifically are failing to assist those children, those 30%, those children, they're failing to assist them just because of the rigorous financial guidelines and the long application process that their guardians must complete. Thank you.